Canine dog tears down school mural. What? He uncovered, stunned everyone. It was just another normal Wednesday at Rosegate Intermediate. The halls buzzed with chatter, backpacks bounced against lockers, and in room 12, paintbrushes dipped into trays as the 7th graders began their art projects. The classroom smelled of markers, watercolor, and old books. Miss Lila Fenley, the school's kind and quiet art teacher, smiled as she walked between rows of desks. Her classroom was her safe space, filled with soft lighting, student drawings, and a massive wall mural her late father had painted years ago. It stretched from the floor to the ceiling on the back wall. The mural showed a cloudy blue sky, a broken fence, and faded silhouettes of children, abstract but beautiful. In the corner of the room, a white-furred Belgian Malinois named Rook lay calmly, his eyes half closed but alert. Rook was not an ordinary dog. He had served with the military and was now part of a new school program that brought service animals into public schools to support safety and emotional well-being. Most students adored Rook. They gave him belly rubs between classes and watched him do tricks during lunch. Rook's handler, Officer Rowan Beck, sat near the classroom door. Dressed in his standard patrol uniform, he watched quietly as the kids worked. He wasn't just there for safety. He had taken this role to heal, to stay close to the world but avoid the worst parts of it. After serving in Army intelligence for years, Rowan had seen too much, lost too much, and trusted too little. But Rook had never let him down. As the students painted their favorite childhood memories, everything seemed peaceful until it wasn't. Without warning, Rook stood up. His body stiffened. His ears perked. A low growl rumbled from his throat. Rowan straightened in his chair. "Rook?" he asked quietly. The dog didn't look at him. Instead, Rook walked slowly, almost like he was sneaking toward the mural on the back wall. At first, Rowan thought maybe someone had left food nearby. But then Rook's growl deepened. He showed his teeth. The students stopped painting. "What's wrong with him?" someone whispered. Before Rowan could move, Rook barked a sharp, loud sound that echoed in the classroom and lunged at the bottom of the mural. His jaws clamped down on the corner of the canvas. With a fierce yank, he tore the fabric off the wall. The sound of ripping canvas filled the room. Paint cups spilled. A few kids screamed. Brushes hit the floor. Miss Fenley gasped, covering her mouth. "No!" Rowan grabbed Rook by the harness, pulling him back, but the damage was done. The mural was shredded, and behind it was something no one expected. A metal panel, covered in dust and scratches, was hidden behind the painting. It had a rusted handle right in the center, like a door. "What the?" Rowan muttered, stepping closer. One of the students stood frozen. "Is it a bomb?" Another shouted, "Is there a secret room?" "Everyone out," Rowan said firmly. "Move into the hallway. Now." The kids rushed out. Miss Fenley looked pale and shaken. She backed toward her desk, eyes locked on the exposed panel. "Tu didn't know that was there," she said quietly. "That mural's been here since I started. My father painted it for me before he passed away. I swear I've never seen that handle." "I believe you," Rowan said gently. Though his voice was tense, he radioed the front office. "Principal Ramirez, we've got a situation in room 12. Please initiate a lockdown and send support." Rook sat beside the metal panel, completely still now. No growling, just watching, like he was guarding something or waiting. Minutes later, the school was locked down. Staff moved students into safe rooms. An eerie silence fell over the halls. Only Officer Rowan, Rook, and Miss Fenley remained in room 12. Rowan crouched beside the panel. It wasn't normal drywall. It was old, thick steel, with a faded sticker in the corner too worn to read. He touched the handle. Cold, real, solid. Miss Fenley sat at her desk, her hands trembling. "My dad was in the military," she whispered. "He never talked about his work. Just said art helped him forget the bad things." Rowan didn't answer. He was thinking the same thing over and over. What did Rook just find? And why now? The quiet dog had never barked in class before. But today, he tore through a painting. Something was buried here. and Rook had heard it first.
The hallway outside room 12 stayed quiet. Yellow tape stretched across the classroom door and a police officer stood guard. Inside, the torn mural lay crumpled on the floor, and behind it, the steel panel waited. Everyone in the school was on edge. A few hours later, a federal team arrived. They wore dark jackets with Historical Investigations Division written on the back. Rowan had never heard of that department before. One of the agents, a serious woman named Agent Calla Reeves, brought scanners and strange tools. She took one look at the panel and said, "We need to open this carefully. Don't touch anything inside." With special gloves and tools, the team opened the metal panel. The door creaked loudly. Cold air rushed out like a breath from the past. Behind it was a narrow space, a hidden room. Rowan and Rook stood just outside the entrance as the team moved in. The room was small, dusty, and lined with old lockers, filing cabinets, and shelves covered in spiderwebs. A strong chemical smell filled the air, like a mix of bleach and hospital cleaner. Agent Reeves pulled out an old file box. Inside were folders stamped in red. "Confidential, Operation Iris Veil." "What is this?" Rowan asked. She flipped through the files and frowned. "Looks like Cold War research, some kind of memory testing." On another shelf, they found reel-to-reel tapes with labels like Subject Alpha and Visual Response Trial 3. Rowan's heart sank. These weren't just old-school records. This was something darker. Rook stood still, staring at one locker in particular. His ears were forward, nose twitching. Rowan opened the locker. Inside was a small journal, wrapped in plastic. On the cover, faded in pen, were the words L. Fenley. Rowan turned to Miss Fenley, who had come to the room after calming down. She looked at the journal and slowly sat down on a nearby bench. Her hands shook as she opened it. The pages were full of simple drawings, houses, trees, dogs, and tunnels. Childish handwriting filled the margins with strange sentences. "I don't like the white room. Miss the dog with the yellow eyes. They say I need to forget." Miss Fenley stared at the pages. I don't remember drawing any of this, but it looks like my handwriting from when I was little." Rowan looked closely at one of the pages. There was a sketch of the mural on the classroom wall, the exact same one her father had painted. Only here it had symbols hidden inside the clouds, triangles, arrows, strange swirls. "It wasn't just art," he said. "The mural, it was a code." Agent Reeves nodded. During the Cold War, some military groups used visual triggers to hide information or to unlock memories. Lila Fenley stood up, her voice shaky. "Are you saying my father painted that mural to help me remember something, or to make me forget?" "We don't know yet," Agent Reeves said. "But this project, Operation Iris Veil, it was about using art to control or erase memories, especially in children." Rowan's stomach turned. He remembered something from his military days, a rumor about silent schools used for training or experiments. No one ever proved they were real. "Why would anyone do this to kids?" Lila asked softly. Agent Reeves didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out another folder from the cabinet. It was labeled Subject Beta, Status Missing. Inside was a sketch of another child, a young girl with dark curls, maybe 8 years old. There was no name, just the word Birdie, written in the corner and a note. "Last seen 1982. Companion Jasper, Canine Unit." Lila stared at the drawing. "She looks familiar. I don't know why, but I feel like I've seen her in my dreams." Rowan knelt beside Rook, who hadn't moved from his post. "You found all this," he whispered. "But why now?" He looked up at the room, at the paintings, the files, the symbols, and felt the weight of the truth pressing down on all of them. This school wasn't just a school, and Rook hadn't just barked at a painting. He had uncovered a secret that was never supposed to be found. The next morning, Rowan couldn't stop thinking about the files. His mind kept going back to the name Subject Alpha. Lila Fenley. She had been just a child, maybe 7 or 8 when it happened. The art, the hidden room, the old recordings, they all pointed to one truth. She had been part of a memory experiment, and the man behind it was her father. Rowan sat with Rook outside the classroom. The room was still sealed with tape. Investigators came and went, carrying boxes of documents. Rook didn't move from the door. He sat like a statue, guarding something only he understood. Inside, the investigation team found a second secret door behind a false panel in the floor. When they lifted it, a narrow ladder led down into darkness. Agent Reeves called Rowan over. "We've got another level," she said. "Are you coming down?" Rowan nodded and looked at Rook. "He's coming too." The air below was colder and the space felt older. It was a small chamber lit by one flickering bulb. Shelves lined the walls, filled with dusty magnetic tapes and notebooks. A broken projector sat in the corner, covered in cobwebs. One of the tapes caught Rowan's eye. It read, "Subject Alpha, Integration Protocol, 1975." And beneath that, in faded ink, "Property of Dr. Everett Fenley, Lila's father." They brought the tape upstairs and found a machine at a nearby museum storage site that could play it. Rowan, Agent Reeves, and Lila gathered in the library media room. The machine buzzed, then the tape began. A man's voice came first, strict and emotionless. "This is Dr. Everett Fenley. Subject Alpha has completed Phase 1. Cognitive recall is strong. Visual triggers are holding, beginning cycle reset." Then a small, frightened voice spoke. "I don't want to draw anymore. I want to go home. Please, can I see my dog?" The man's voice returned sharply. "Proceed with reset." The tape ended in static. Lila stared at the machine, her eyes filled with tears. "That voice, that was me." Rowan sat beside her. "It confirms it. You were Subject Alpha." Lila looked lost. "But I remember growing up in Germany with my mom. I remember school, holidays, birthdays." Agent Reeves shook her head. "Those may not be real memories, or they were planted to cover what happened. Memory manipulation is messy. Some things stay, some things vanish." Lila stood up, pacing the room. "My father told me art helped him remember. I think he used it to help me forget." Rowan took a deep breath. "He painted the mural, maybe not to hide the past, but to give you a chance to unlock it." There was a long silence. Then Rook let out a low growl. He walked to a corner of the room and began sniffing along the floor. "What is it, boy?" Rowan asked. Rook scratched at a dusty tile. Underneath, they found another file, small, flat, and marked Birdie, Subject Beta, Final Report Incomplete. Inside was a drawing of the same dark-haired girl from the earlier folder, but this time she was older. Her expression was sad. Next to her was a black and white dog, labeled Jasper. A note at the bottom read, "No confirmed sighting since 1982. Possible escape. Unknown status." Lila stared at the picture. "I've seen her before, in my dreams." Rowan frowned. "You think she's real?" "She has to be," Lila whispered. "If I was Alpha, maybe she was Beta. Maybe she got out." Agent Reeves nodded slowly. "We always believed these programs were shut down, but what if she's still out there?" Rowan looked at Rook. The dog's eyes were locked on the image, his body tense. "I think he knows," Rowan said. That night, Rowan sat at his apartment table, the files spread before him. Rook paced the room, restless. He only acted like this when a mission wasn't finished. Across the top folder, a new title stared back at him. Operation Iris Veil, full archive access pending. They weren't just digging into a secret. They were opening a door to something bigger. And Rook, the quiet dog who never barked without reason, had been the first one to find the key. The next morning, the school stayed closed. News had started to spread. Reporters stood at the gates. People whispered about secret rooms and lost children. But inside her small home near the woods, Lila Fenley sat at her window, painting. She didn't use a brush. She dipped her fingers in blue and gold, drawing soft shapes on the glass. "Every time I close my eyes," she said quietly, "I see her. The girl in the file. She's always hiding, always afraid. And there's a dog near her. Not Rook, a different one, black and white." Rowan stood behind her, holding a sealed red envelope. It had been found in a rusted drawer under the school. The handwriting on the front said, "For LF, when the world is ready." He placed it gently on the table. Lila stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a letter written by her father. "My sweet Lila, if you're reading this, I am already gone. I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. They told me I was protecting the country. They told me memory was just data that could be rewritten. But they never told me what it would cost to erase the truth from a child. I painted that mural to protect you, or maybe to help you find your way back. You always loved the color blue. Dad." Tears rolled down Lila's cheeks. She didn't cry loudly, just soft, quiet tears like rain on a window. Later that day, the town held a meeting in the school gym. Everyone wanted answers. Parents were worried. Teachers were shocked. Rowan stood at the back with Rook beside him. The school board announced that room 12 would be sealed off forever. The documents had been turned over to the government. But what happened would not be forgotten. A student raised their hand and asked, "Is it true a dog found all this?" Rowan nodded. "It's true. Rook didn't just bark at a painting, he barked at a memory, a truth someone tried to hide, and he didn't stop until we listened." The crowd clapped, not loudly but with respect. In the weeks that followed, things began to change. The school turned the East Wing into a memorial art gallery. It didn't hold awards or trophies. Instead, it displayed paintings from kids across the country, art about fear, hope, and healing. Right in the center hung a new painting by Lila. It showed two dogs, Rook and a black and white collie, standing at the edge of a bright forest. Behind them was a child's shadow and an open door, a door that had once been locked. One afternoon, a woman from Idaho contacted the FBI. She ran a dog rescue center. Years ago, a half-starved black and white collie had wandered onto her land. The only name he responded to was Jasper. When they brought him to Fairhaven, Lila met him at the school. She didn't say a word. The dog walked straight to her, rested his head on her knee, and closed his eyes. Rook stood nearby, tail wagging, as if he understood everything. That night, Rowan walked past the old orphanage lot. It was now a quiet field. But Rook suddenly stopped, ears forward, nose twitching. He ran toward a manhole cover near the corner. Etched in the cement beside it were faint letters, for Birdie. The next morning, the FBI brought ground radar. They found a hidden chamber under the lot. Inside were rusted shelves, broken toys, and a mural painted in a child's hand. A girl, a dog, a gate, and above it 3 words: "Still watching, still here." In a corner, Rowan found a torn journal. They said I had no name, but I remember now. The dog remembered too. He never left. I think he's the part of me they couldn't erase. Back at the school, Lila stood before her class again. She had returned to teaching, not because she forgot the pain, but because she remembered. She told her students, art doesn't hide the truth. It helps us find it. And as they painted, Rook lay by the window, his eyes calm, his tail gently thumping. Somewhere out there, maybe Birdie was still alive. Or maybe she was just a story waiting to be heard. But one thing was clear. Rook had done what no one else could. He listened. And because he did, the truth finally had a voice.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Love Tales of Tales, for long, heartwarming pets and animals. Love stories that stay with you long after they end.